Thanks to CuriosityStream for supporting my channel. Watch the extended versions of my videos when you sign up for CuriosityStream and Nebula using my promo code Jordan. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about how the iPad Pro has been a total game changer for me, both as a PhD student at MIT and as a content creator, but in particular as someone with inattentive ADHD. And this isn't something that I've really talked about a lot on the channel, so if you'd like to see more videos on the intersection of ADHD, productivity, and tech, you can let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to see some behind the scenes on how I get worked on a day-to-day basis, you can follow me on Instagram. But without further ado, let's get into it. When it comes to ADHD, one of the biggest things that I tend to struggle with is feeling overwhelmed, and that can be with anything from my current commitments to specific tasks. But in the last couple of years, I've realized that it also applies to technology, specifically when it comes to multitasking and the physical size of a screen. So when I received the 11-inch 16-gig iPad Pro as a gift in 2019, shout out to my dad, I pretty quickly realized that the smaller screen actually made a huge difference for me in terms of my productivity and being able to tackle tasks that normally would be really challenging for me. And for context, I had been using and currently still use the LG 34-inch ultra-wide external monitor when I'm working from home, which has been really helpful in a lot of ways because there are times when I'm, especially in the morning, I have lots of energy, and so I like having the big screen and being able to move through multiple different things at the same time. But once that first couple hours of executive function runs out, I find the extra space, like literally the physical size of the screen, to be overstimulating to the point where I can't really get any work done. And that is when I switch over to my iPad. Most of the apps that I use on my laptop, which you can hear more about in my What's on My Laptop video, are actually also available as apps on my iPad, so it's pretty easy to toggle back and forth between the two, or even use them simultaneously if I'm doing something like writing a manuscript where I need to reference papers on my monitor and then write on my iPad. So for example, I actually started writing the script to this video on my monitor and then ended up switching over to my iPad after about an hour because I was feeling a bit overwhelmed and it was a lot easier to complete it over there. Additionally, I find that I'm a lot less likely to try to multitask on my iPad, mostly because if you try to put multiple things on one screen using the split screen feature, both things are so small that neither of them are particularly useful, so it just doesn't really work. And this helps me get into that deep workflow state a lot easier, especially when it comes to writing, which is something that I particularly struggle with, both partially because of my ADHD, but also because I tend to be a perfectionist and often start editing as I'm writing. Outside of helping me feel less overwhelmed, using an iPad for note-taking and keeping track of my lab notebook has solved one of the struggles that I find most people with ADHD complain about, and that is constantly losing pieces of paper. Growing up, my backpack might as well have been the void when it came to homework, permission slips, handouts. Anything that went in there either didn't come out or came out looking like it had gone through a shredder. And when it came to using notebooks to take notes for specific classes, things always ended up crumpled or somehow waterlogged, which I don't know how that happened. And with notebooks specifically, as I accumulated notebooks for all my different classes, I ended up with shelves full of notebooks that I never actually went back to reference information from because the idea of having to actually parse through all of those notebooks was overwhelming. And when it became more common to have laptops in class, there was a period in college where I actually tried to type my notes instead of writing them in notebooks, but I very quickly found that, as most studies have shown, when I write things by hand, I'm a lot more likely to remember them, whereas when I type them, I don't really retain the information. And that's where my iPad comes in, specifically my iPad with the Apple Pencil 2. I actually originally didn't like writing on my iPad screen. I thought that the screen felt too smooth and it felt unnatural, but within a couple months of getting my iPad, I discovered the paper-like screen protectors, which I have on this, and with that it feels just like writing in a normal notebook. So with the screen protector and the pencil, I can use my iPad to take notes by hand so that I actually retain the information, and then save and organize my notes in a way that makes them easy to reference in the future, but also isn't overwhelming for me to get through and stores the paper clutter in a digital form out of the way. And this is actually especially important when it comes to my lab notebook for research, because in the past when I used paper lab notebooks, I often ran into the same issue where they tended to be very disorganized and it was hard to look back at earlier data or earlier notes for future experiments. Also, as an aside, I've been kind of redesigning my office lately, which is why it's kind of like cluttered and messy, and have been considering documenting the process. So if that's something that you'd be interested in seeing a video on, you can let me know in the comments. Lastly, it's not uncommon for me to have a burst of inspiration or creativity in a particularly inopportune moment, say at the gym, on a train, or while cooking. And I found the iPad to actually be a really useful tool to capture those ideas in a way that I can reliably reference later. And you're probably wondering, you also have an iPhone, why don't you just use that? And for me, I find that the ideas that I usually want to capture tend to be either long form writing, so it's not uncommon for me to have entire paragraphs of a script kind of pop into my head in one moment, or things that are better represented through drawing, which is hard to do on my phone. And in both cases, having either the pencil or the Magic Keyboard around so that I can type things out or draw things out as I need to makes it a lot easier to capture those ideas and then integrate them into my current file project management system, which is also a little bit in flux. Now, this isn't to say that everyone with ADHD should get an iPad Pro, or that the iPad Pro is the perfect system for people with ADHD or for people who are looking to be more productive generally. First off, it's pretty expensive. As I mentioned earlier, I got mine as a Christmas present, but if I were to have bought them outright, it would have cost around $1,400 for the iPad, the pencil, and the Magic Keyboard. It would be a little bit cheaper now if you're looking at the M1 iPad Pro, as well as if you're using education pricing because it's back to school season. But that's obviously a pretty hefty investment no matter what. Additionally, as much as I love the Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil separately, I find that they actually don't work that well together. When I normally have my iPad in its normal case, which is this one, which actually looks a little beat up these days, it has a flap that essentially holds the pencil onto the iPad, which is normally attached using MagSafe to keep it on and keep it charging. But when I'm using the Magic Keyboard, it's not uncommon for the pencil to fall off and for me to temporarily misplace it for hours or days at a time. So far, I haven't had to buy a new one though, so that's good. In short, while it's definitely been a really helpful tool for me, and if you're looking for a tablet style tool to help you become more productive or help you do things like manage some of the ADHD symptoms that I talked about, then it might be helpful for you. It's definitely not a necessary tool for anyone to have, and if you have a system that already works for you right now, then stick with that. In fact, I mentioned in my What's on My Laptop video that while digital systems are something that I heavily rely on to make sure I can stay productive and focused throughout the day, the thing that actually pulls all of my digital systems together is a physical notebook. And if you'd like to hear more about how I use a paper notebook to tie all of my different computers together, you should check out the Nebula Plus version of that video. If you haven't heard, Nebula is a streaming platform built by me and some of my friends, including people like Simon Clark, 12 Tone, and Medlife Crisis. On Nebula, you can find ad-free versions of all of our videos, extended versions of our videos, and bonus content that we can post without worrying about how it's going to perform on YouTube. So if you're watching this video on Nebula, you could just hop over to my What's on My Laptop video and learn about how using a paper notebook makes me a better researcher, programmer, and content creator. You'd also get access to our Nebula originals, which you can't find anywhere else, including Tom Scott's game show Money, or a very good trivia show, where I won $500 for drawing a very nice circle. And the best way to sign up for Nebula is actually through CuriosityStream, who are kindly sponsoring this video. CuriosityStream is a subscription streaming service with thousands of documentaries and nonfiction videos. In fact, if you're interested in learning more about ADHD, they have a mini documentary on women with ADHD, which I watched last week. It was really interesting. There were a lot of experiences that people had that definitely resonated with me, and it was only 11 minutes long to accommodate my short attention span. CuriosityStream loves independent creators and wants to help us grow our platform, so if you click on the link in the description or use my promo code Jordan, you can get access to CuriosityStream for 26% off their annual plans, with Nebula included for free for as long as you are a CuriosityStream member. That's less than $15 a year. Signing up for CuriosityStream and Nebula is a great way to directly support my channel while getting to watch my videos ad-free and getting to check out all of the awesome content on Nebula. So sign up for CuriosityStream and Nebula at curiositystream.com/Jordan or using the promo code Jordan. If you'd like to check out what I keep on my laptop and by proxy my iPad, you can check out this video. You can follow me on my socials down here, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!